Welcome back. So this was the last slide. We were discussing that one can also uh, extract the data from the signatures which are preserved in archaeological site or at archaeological site, and you can also predict the future earthquake. Okay. Now, so this is what they have tried, and further, uh, this is again from the textbook and the uh, the mechanism as well as the examples which are been given here based on the damage is from the European side. So, what they talk about the classification of type of archaeoseismological evidence, what one should look at. So, you have, for example, here phenomena related to the faulting and ground rupture. Then mechanism is faulting, then you are having fissures developed, and then you can also talk in terms of the modern measurement techniques, that is geodetic changes you can look at. So, it talks about that offset or deformation of artifacts bearing stratas one can look at. Okay. So, artifacts is the tools which they have used, even the debris which we are having. So, this is the complete list. When you get the presentations, you can go through it, and later, like archaeological uh, effects, what one should look at based on because of the earthquakes. Okay. So, this is again another a chart which is available, which talks about that what evidence or the signatures you should look at on fault, and the example which we are looking at, the Al Harif Equator is on fault, because that fault, the structures were constructed on fault and they got displaced. Okay. So, one can try to look at that what will be the effect on fault and the off fault. Okay. So, this part we will discuss in detail about the geological effects and the coming lectures, that what evidence one should look at in landforms on fault and landforms off fault. Okay. What changes will occur because of the earthquake, because the landscape is getting affected by this earthquakes or not, that also one can look at, and what evidence one should look for of fault. Like for example, I'll give here that you have the Himalayan zone. So, most of the earthquakes which are occurring will be in Himalaya, and then if you are having any structure which has been put across this, okay, will be in on fault signatures. Okay. And then if you are having away from the, for example, if you take the Himalayan side, okay, so you have like this is if you are having the structures which are put on the faults, and then we have also looked at that there are multiple faults which are present in Himalayas. Okay. But away from the fault, that means in the Indo-Gangetic plain, if you take, okay, then what could be the signatures one should look for. Okay. So, depending on the site and depending on the geological setting, one can try to look for the relative or the respective evidence. Okay, we can say. So, for example, here it has been written that tsunamis. Okay, so this tsunamis will not be seen in Himalayas because we don't have the water column which is available, and then rock falls in the hilly areas, landslides also one can say. And then this is the term which has been used like faction. Okay, so this terminologies we will use and we will learn when we are moving ahead in this course. But in particularly structures, if you look at, okay, then what you are going to see is that rotated and displaced butter walls, okay, then tilted walls, displaced walls, folded walls, okay, and then if the structure still exists, then what sort of signatures we will look at. Okay, so you have the penetrative fractures in the masonry blocks, conjugate fractures which are very commonly seen during any earthquake, even to the masonry structures, fallen and oriented columns you have. Okay. Then you have rotated and displaced masonry blocks in walls and drum columns. Okay, so you are having, if you are having cylindrical columns, then they may rotate and they show that could be related to your earthquakes when they got damaged because of the earthquake. Okay, then you have the displaced, okay, masonry blocks. Okay, so because in the ancient time, mostly what we see and what we learn is that they use rock blocks. Okay, the material which was being used was mainly the rocks and all that. Okay, so rock blocks and all that. Then if you are having an arc type structures, okay, which has been shown here, then there will be sort of the central portion, that is what we call the keystone, will be displaced. Okay, so dropping off the keystone in arc sides of door, either it is a door or a frame, or you are having the windows frame. Okay, then you are having folded and curved structures. Okay, so you will have some sort of an wavy structures you will see. Okay, collapsed walls, so fallen structures you should try to look at. So these are all signatures which one can see in the at the archaeological sites. Okay, so this is basically at the archaeological sites. Okay, so this, based on this, you can talk about that how this site got, whether it was affected because of the earthquake or not. So here also it talks about this similar part, but this side which you see, okay, is your intensity. Okay, that for example, if you are having the for here what we were looking in the previous slide, that is your rotated displaced masonry blocks, then the intensity could go up to 10 to 12. Okay, so what is this intensity scale and all that? This we are going to learn in the next coming lectures. Okay, but this is particularly very high. It goes like equivalent to the magnitude of above 7. So these are all like the geological effects we see. So we are going to learn about the geological effects, what one should look at in the sediments or the young deposits, and this part is only basic on the building fabrics. Okay, so based on that, you can also talk about the intensity. What could have been the intensity? Of course, this uh, the, the the part which has been shown here is not just based on the one site study, but multiple sites they have studied, and they have tried to see that what has happened in the modern time and what uh, would have happened in the past. Okay, so with this, there were like few studies which were been conducted. So this is the same part which we were talking about. The few studies were been conducted to understand that what could have been the magnitude of the past earthquake. Okay, so geological as well as again you are having the building fabric effects, what it could be. Okay, now with this part, keeping in mind this that what sort of evidence one should look at. Okay, okay, and then this again, this is at the particular site. Okay, we can identify, or we can at least assign the magnitude. Okay, now this is an example from Greece. Okay, which clearly shows there is a column here, but you can see the displaced. Okay, over here, you have all displaced blocks. Okay, and they are, in terms of the weight, they are very heavy. It is not possible to manually move it, or maybe because of the air thrust. If you are having a stormy condition, then also this cannot be moved because they are well locked. There is a locking portion here which you can see. So they are each block of the circular block of the column is been locked properly. So it cannot move very easily, but because of the strong ground shaking, this can happen. So this evidence was been identified. Then there are a couple of research papers which talks about this type of evidence and talks about the archaeoseismology, past, present, and future. Okay. So this was again from the area of in Europe, which talks about the cracks here which have been developed. You can see here these are the cracks, okay, and then displaced blocks. You can see fractured blocks. You can see. So this is because of the strong ground shaking. Then fallen columns, which we were looking at in the chart also. So these are also the evidence. Fallen walls, you are having collapsed walls. Then you have the displaced rock blocks also over here. And then one can have one can go for also the understanding of the earthquake as we were talking about. Okay, so this is again from from Greece also, Greece only, a great theater of Larissa you have, and they were able to identify a couple of similar signatures from there also. So this is again, and a lot of what we have learned from that chart, the typical signatures of rotated blocks. You will have diagonal cracks or the fractures which are uh, seen in the columns because of the strong ground shaking, and widening of this joints here. Okay, because no one will keep these blocks while construction having so wide like space. Okay, so this widening is not created by any other mean, but definitely by strong earthquake. And you will also learn in coming lectures that you have all sorts of movements which are experienced during a ground shaking. Okay, or this when the seismic wave travels through the crust. Okay, you will, or the loose sediments, they will have all sorts of movement. It will have push and pull. It will have elliptical motion, side by side. It can move the land up and down, and elliptical also. Okay, so this were the signatures which one can see. Even this, you can see the block has moved out here. Okay, and there is a movement over here also. This block has moved this side. Okay, so they tried to look at this the evidence from the uh, Larissa theater, and they proposed that high probability of reactivation of the Larissa fault during, so 7th to 15th century they had multiple earthquakes, and which resulted into this damage to this. Okay, now this is a photograph again from Italy. Okay, where we visited, and we found some signatures of the fallen columns, and that was related to the resulted because of a strong earthquake in Italy. And this temples were been half built, so you can see the towering height of the temple here. Okay, the temple columns. Okay, so this is what you have, and they have also tried to conserve these columns. Okay, trying to place it back, but few still you can see that they are available, because these are very heavy blocks, and the structure is quite high, more than like I think 15-20 meters. Okay, you can see the scale here of the person who is standing, and then the height. Okay, so there are clear indications over here where you can see the displaced blocks. Okay, close up of that also we have over here, which shows that this block has moved, which was earlier aligned like this. Okay, but now it has moved this side. Okay, so these are the evidence, the signatures which are available in at the archaeological sites, which can be used to understand that similar things can happen in future, because earthquakes are not going to stop. Earthquakes are going to reoccur again and again in that particular area, so it is not going to. So how we can even safeguard the the ancient structures as well as what we are constructing now. That can be sort of an attempt towards the risk reduction in the area. Okay. So these are again few photographs from the same area. Because of the great earthquake in Italy, these temples were not finished. Okay, they have to leave it half the way. Now, evidence of past earthquakes uh, preserved in old temples from Himalaya. Okay. So, few studies were being conducted to look at that if you are because in and this comes from the Kashmir area. Okay, which had experienced large earthquakes during the historical past. Okay. So there are two temples which were been studied, their ruins. Okay, that is Avantipura and Sun Temple of Martang. So this is the Google images of that, and one example we'll talk about the this one is from your Indo-Gangetic plain, that is known as Aichatra. So these are the locations which have been shown in the Kashmir Valley. Okay, the Srinagar is close to that. The Avantipura Pur temple and Martang temple, Sun temple in that area. So, keeping what we saw in this chart and plus the evidence from Italy and Greece, okay, what similar whether we see similar pattern of damage in this Indian temple or not. Okay, so again the construction pattern was more or less similar using the rock blocks here also. So this is from Avanti Pur temple. These images are available on internet, and one can. So we try to download and we try to interpret that what probably it shows. Of course, this shows the rotated blocks. In this again you have the block has moved here. This block has moved this side. So you have that, and plus the fallen structures, as well as we also were able to see the diagonal cracks which were developed. One is the evidence over here. Okay, diagonal cracks which were developed, and you can see here also. Maybe close up I am having. Let me check that. So if you see, yeah, okay. So if you see this, these are the all diagonal cracks. Okay, or the fractures which were developed in the columns, and this is very much similar to what we were looking in the Laretia theatre evidence from Europe. Then the ejected blocks from the wall, we can see that they are fallen in one direction and all that. Okay. Then further about the keystone part. Okay, so if you see this, this is the keystone which is again fallen down here, and then or maybe rolling of the key block is there, and then blocks which are been, because when there is a ground shaking, these blocks are not cemented properly, so they will try to move uh, uh, back and forth, and that results into the what we see here. Okay, that some blocks are like protruded out from its original place. Okay, and then this is the key stone region which has been fallen down. Okay, now come, so that was from Kashmir. We saw two examples of the Avantipura and Martin temple. Now we also tried to visit the Baijana temple, which is one of the famous ancient temple which was been constructed in 12th and 13th century in Kangra Valley, and this is near or probably at Palanpur region in Kangra Valley. So we visited this because we knew that there was a major earthquake of 1905 in Kangra. So this again, and photographs which of that time were available on internet. That is, they talk about the before 1905. Okay, so this is the same, more or less same picture. You see the this is the the top portion of this temple, Palampur, at Baijnath temple, and few locations what we were able to see was like reconstructed, okay, or restored, we can say. And this is from that side, okay. So there's the backside of that which got affected. It says partly damaged in earthquake of 1905, and which was been restored, okay. So this is exactly the same location what you see here. This is the same portion here, okay, which you can see. This one is the same portion. So this portion was been restored, okay, back. So you can also try to look at that how much damage has been caused to this type of structures, okay. Then this is also again a modern construction which has been done. So definitely this the original one you can see over here. So this was the pattern of construction, but now what they have done is with the cement and bricks, okay. Then further we looked inside the temple, because they did not restore this, probably because of the structural stability of uh, the the temple. They did not restore, but we were able to see that there are clear cut evidence or the signature of your rotating or the displaced blocks here, okay. You can see that, and then plus you can see that they have tried to restore it, providing some iron support, okay, which has been seen here. Is a close up of that, the displaced blocks, okay, and then widening up of what we see, the gaps here, and plus the damage which you can see here, okay. Now the this area which is like from not very far from Chandigarh. Chandigarh is located in the Indo-Gangetic plain here, and then we have the portion here, the Pinjore Garden, okay, the Pinjore Garden fault which we have identified. The location, famous location is Pinjore, and which has a very beautiful uh, garden which is known as Pinjore Garden, which was built in 17th century. So in this, and this again pattern of Mughal gardens. We have a similar pattern you can see here, which you will come across in Kashmir, even in Delhi. So similar pattern was been seen here in this. So this is a Mughal garden and named as Pinjore Garden now. And you have multiple faults over here. So this red arrows are showing the fault lines, okay. This garden is been exactly placed on the fault line over here, okay. So this goes like this. So this is on the Pinjore Garden fault, okay. So we have done studies here. This I will discuss when we are talking about the paleoseismology part, and we identified that there were major earthquakes in the past. However, since the construction of this garden, there was no earthquake, because it doesn't show any damage here. But in future, definitely it will get affected. So it is well planned, well constructed. This side is up, this side is down. You have, and the fault runs over here. Okay. So usually, what Mughals were very like concerned about, wherever they have this construction of these gardens, they have the central pathway, which will be you're having the water pathway, okay, and that's what we call chashma. So you have the flowing water through this. So what they did was that, of course, there was a nearby river. This is the nearby river Jhajra, and from there they used to pull water here in the tank, and then they allow the water to flow through, okay. And so there was an elevation change over here from this place to this place here. That what we call the big step, and there is a complete change in the elevation here that allowed the water to flow naturally, okay. So this portion, if you see on the satellite data, we have the clear cut indication of the fault, which of course you will not be able to make out from this 2D image, but if you see in 3D, that what one exercise we will try to do it in as a lab part, where you will generate the inner glyph, and you will be able to see the terrain in 3 dimension on your PC. Okay, so that we will do in coming lectures. Okay, as we progress in this course. So you have this big step which has been constructed. Now the concern point is that you have we did this trenching here, and this is the scarp which is which can see. Okay, so you topography, if you see, is something like this. Okay, and then fault in section, if you see, the fault runs somewhere here, okay, and on surface it goes like this. So we did detailed study. One thing which you can clearly notice, that I'm putting a fault here, and then there is a rail track which is just crossing this area. Okay, and this rail track goes to your Shimla. Okay, however, no without knowing that there is a fault here, the construction was been done. In future, this will definitely get damaged whenever there is an earthquake here. Okay, so this what we did from for our trenching. I'm not going to talk detail here, but we'll discuss when we come across the, or we will come to the lectures on paleoseismology and all that. Okay. Now the main part which I was worried about, that the later constructions which were done. Okay, of course, without knowing, the people who constructed this temple, they did not know about the geological evidence of these faults. So they constructed exactly on the fault. Hence, whenever there will be an earthquake, this will be affected. There are some ancient, not ancient, but old heritage like structures, or the areas where been transferred to like transformed to hotels. Okay, now we had this. So this is on the topography what you see here, and this hotel is setting exactly on the fault. Okay, and you see on the other side, this side, so hotel is somewhere over here. Okay, and then for this photograph which you see, which was taken way back in 70s, was from here. Okay, looking this wall, and the in the fault scarp over here. So this is the road which is you see here, is this one. Okay, and this we took now. Okay, not now, but of course around 2004 or so. Okay, or 2001. So you can see that there are places, or the locations in India also, which are setting on fault and can provide us good evidence of the seismological evidence of past earthquakes. Okay, so with this we will stop here, and in next lecture we will talk about Aichhatra, and see what signatures we see, and of course of the some part of the Kutch area also. So till then, goodbye. Thank you so much.